Let's talk about a city where the past isn't something you read about in a book, it's literally the ground you walk on. We're going to Paphos, on the coast of Cyprus. Here, history is so present you can actually reach out and touch stones that have seen entire empires rise and fall.
And you know, that isn't just some poetic line. It's the absolute truth. It's the blueprint for the whole city. Think of it like this. Instead of conquering and just erasing what was there before, each new culture, each new empire, just built on top of the last one. They added another layer to the story.
So, let's start digging, shall we? We're going to peel back these layers one by one, starting right at the very beginning.
Our story starts about 9,000 years ago. Now, forget about kings and grand palaces. This is a time when the first settlers were just arriving, and architecture had one and only one simple purpose.
The very first buildings in Paphos weren't grand monuments at all. They were just these simple, round shelters built low to the ground. This wasn't about making a statement or showing off power. Nope, this was about pure survival, staying safe from the weather and whatever dangers were out there.
And this, right here, represents an incredible leap in how we think as humans. We go from these purely functional, survival-based huts to something completely different when Greek culture arrives on the scene, the idea of order. All of a sudden, architecture isn't just about staying alive. It's about rectangular plans, measured proportions, and actual, thoughtful design. It's a total game changer.
But before the Greeks could completely reshape the city, Paphos became famous for something else entirely. It became home to one of the most important religious sites in the entire Mediterranean, the great sanctuary of Aphrodite.
Now, if you're picturing a classic Greek temple with huge columns and statues, just erase that image. The sanctuary of Aphrodite defied all those expectations. There were no giant statues of the goddess, no rows of elegant columns. Instead, all the worship centered on a single sacred stone, sitting in an open, symbolic space. It was belief, not decoration, that shaped this place.
All right, so all of this sets the stage for the city's absolute peak. In 58 BC, the Romans arrive. And they don't just conquer Paphos, they turn it into the capital of the entire island. And that kicks off a golden age of construction.
You know, the Romans, they were completely obsessed with order and engineering. They took Paphos from just a collection of buildings and transformed it into a meticulously planned city. They laid down a grid of straight roads, they engineered these incredible aqueducts to bring fresh water down from the mountains, and they designed public squares, or agoras, for everyone to gather.
But for all their amazing public projects, the most breathtaking things the Romans built were actually inside the homes of their wealthy officials. And the real masterpieces, they weren't hanging on the walls, they were right there, underfoot. This is where art and architecture just become one. The floors of these villas were covered in these stunningly intricate mosaics. And these weren't just pretty patterns, they were epic stories told in tiny little stones. They showed everything from dramatic Greek myths to scenes from the local grape harvest. Absolutely incredible.
But Roman architecture wasn't just for the rich, it served everybody. The city had this beautiful limestone Odeon for music and performances, a bustling agora for trade, and of course that massive aqueduct supplying water to the whole population. These buildings were the real backbone of Roman life.
Well, you know how these stories go. Empires fall and golden ages come to an end. A new era was dawning for Paphos, one that wouldn't be defined by luxury and order, but by a new faith and a constant feeling of fear. So as Christianity starts to sweep across the Roman Empire, the very soul of Paphos begins to change. The old gods were abandoned, and those magnificent pagan temples that had stood for centuries, including Aphrodite's great sanctuary, well, they fell silent.
And right in their place, new structures began to appear. And you want to talk about layers? This is the perfect example. Early Christians often built their basilicas using the stones and sometimes even the columns from the old temples they were replacing.
After Rome fell, and after a series of really devastating earthquakes, the whole purpose of architecture shifted. It went from beauty to just brute force. For centuries, Paphos was under constant threat. Power kept changing hands, Byzantines, Lusignans, Venetians, and each new ruler had to build for one primary reason: defense. And a single building, the Paphos Castle, tells this whole story. It started as a Byzantine fort, then it was rebuilt by the Lusignans, torn down by the Venetians, and then rebuilt again by the Ottomans. Just look at it. This design isn't about elegance, it's about thick walls, narrow windows, and pure survival.
And that brings us to the modern era,
where the story of Paphos architecture takes one last really fascinating turn, from just adding new layers to consciously preserving all the ones that came before.
Today, the entire city is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Now, that's not just some fancy title, it's a commitment. It means modern architecture has to respect the ancient ruins. New buildings are kept low so they don't overshadow the past, and pretty much any new construction project could turn into an archaeological dig.
Which kind of brings us right back to where we started. Paphos is this incredible reminder that a city's true character isn't found in its newest, shiniest skyscraper. It's in the layers of stories left behind by everyone who's ever called that place home.
The beauty of Paphos is that its history is just honest. It's weathered, it's visible everywhere you look, and it leaves us with a really fascinating question to think about. If you look closely enough, what stories are carved in the stones of your own city?